Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Amon Forge Knight build in Borderlands 4. As you can see here, it gets pretty crazy with the amount of damage that you can do because we can pair a few different things here that work extremely well together. And you can see you don't you just destroy absolutely everything. But this will also be a leveling build, so I'll be showing you how to go through the early game. And I find that the SCOURGE skill tree is great for solo play, so I'll be going through all the different levels, the best things to look out for, and everything in general for this build. Now, I'll be honest that Amon does not have the greatest skill tree. However, we can still make the most of it, as I find that the Cryo damage here, Cryo is really effective, and we can stack this up and have a lot of synergy with some of the other skill trees. So I have 28 points there, 21 points in the Onslaughter. I'll take you through all of this here. So level 1, we're going to go with the SCOURGE skill tree, as I find this works best as it gives you a bit of tankiness from the front, and later on we can actually have a really high uptime with this. We basically will have the shield at all times, or the damage reduction of 60% that it brings. The second one we're going to go for is Scorched Kairos here. So Ordnance damage is extremely powerful for this build since our skill tree counts as Cryo Ordnance damage. So we want everything that's going to boost that up, and there's some items in the game that work very well here. This will also increase your magazine size by up to 30%. The other points here are nice, like giving health regeneration and gun damage the more full your health is. And this one here giving you increased status application chance here, but I think that the Scorched Kairos ends up being the best, as it actually works well with some of the other ones here. Like whenever so levels 5 to 10 here, whenever Amon deals Ordnance damage, there's a chance to apply a Cryo status effect that deals Cryo damage over time, and the tail of the comet is affected by the status effect application. Since we'll be doing a lot of Ordnance damage, we're going to want to go with this here. And for our first augment, this really depends on if you're going to play with multiple players. The Cryonic Thrum here is going to be great because it boosts up your allies. But if you're doing solo play, the Forge Waves will do additional damage and Cryo Ordnance damage in an area of effect. So solo play, Blast Chill is better. With other players and with friends, I'd go with this one here. Now, there's a couple good ones here. Obviously, increasing the amount of Cryo damage is going to be great. However, I think there's a better choice to go with here. Also, Warrior's Cup's nice. However, there's a little asterisk here because it only works when our action skill is active, and it'll reduce the duration will get restored, so you can stay in this a little bit longer. This is great if you can grab a Repkit that's going to give you 3 charges, because you can pretty much just extend it by 100%. Now, I actually think that Bullet Hail works best because later on in the skill tree, we're going to be grabbing stuff that actually benefits from the Elemental Shard. So whenever we have gunshots, we have a chance to ricochet as an Elemental Shard, dealing crowd damage, and does 75% of the damage dealt. So pretty good number here, and 20% chance. So this is a flat out boost to our damage. However, there's some other points in the skill tree that's actually going to get boosted by this as well. This is just in time for our second augment here, Eternal Winter, which is actually really crazy. Forge Waves will now restore action skill duration. So if you spam it, you're going to keep getting your action skill back. It's actually pretty crazy. So you can do 3 in a row, and then you'll do a massive Forge Wave that deals increased damage and does not consume our Vengeance. So yeah, you can do this with the shield up, you get a bunch of extra damage out, and then you can continually keep spamming this. If you took the Warrior's Cup here, you can use this to regenerate it and then heal yourself to get a bit more. So you can actually extend your action skill quite a bit. Now, once we get to here, as much as I like the Northern Wind, whenever you do grind critical hits, it can apply additional slow. This can make enemies extremely slow, and I think against certain bosses, this is great. However, I found Icy Rage actually works a little bit better. So once you get a kill, you're going to apply cryo damage, or whenever you do a kill with cryo damage, which we can apply a lot of cryo damage on our attacks, we get a boost to our overall gun damage. And this is a 6.25% per stack, and we have 5 stacks of this. So this boosts our overall damage by 37.5%. That's quite a boost to our overall damage. So we want to use as much cryo damage as possible because we get that massive boost to our overall damage. And then the Winter's Kiss actually is a good combination here. So whenever we deal Ordnance damage, which again, we have a lot of Ordnance damage, we consume a stack of the cryo affinity that we get from the Icy Rage. And this will spawn an Elemental Shard dealing cryo damage in an area. So with this and this here, we actually get a lot of boost to our overall damage because this is going to create Elemental Shards that shoot out, dealing damage. This also takes us to our capstone, the Glacial Rapture. This changes our firewall ability into the Glacial Rapture, which you can press and hold to create Forge Whips, dealing cryo damage, and then it creates an area of effect dealing damage over time. And it's Ordnance damage again, as you guessed it. So this will boost up our damage even further. And we also can go down here, and this is a really good one to take since we got the ability to create Elemental Shards in a couple different skills. The Corroming Shard here will increase its chance by 21%, so that's pretty good. You're going to chain out a bunch of extra damage. Now, as mentioned, you can go back and take the Warrior's Cup if you want to go back into there, but I actually like to go into the skill tree here for Onslaughter. We're not going to be going with a lot of the melee attack choices here because some of them just don't fit onto this build very well. We really want to get to the Gut Punch here because whenever we deal Ordnance damage, you guessed it, we can actually apply a condition to the enemy, which actually boosts our damage up quite a bit. Now, the impetus here is nice because you can get shield regeneration, right, and movement speed increase when we take out enemies. but I found that the heavy plate just works best. Increasing your maximum shield capacity and over shield capacity is great, especially if you find items that can generate yourself some extra over shields. Once we get down here, I think that the best choice, again, gut punch, getting this maxed out is really important. So melee damage and ordnance damage have a chance to apply weakness, which makes the enemy deal 40% less damage, and then we deal 20% more damage to them for 8 seconds. And this has a 30% chance on our ordnance, and we got a lot of ways to proc that. Melee attacks also will operate this, but we can go with the increased status effect damage and status effect duration here with the Wheel of the Storm. But I think actually at this point, it's good to take the shield regeneration rate, because this just gives us ability to regenerate ourselves a bit. Now, the Forged and Seal is nice, giving us 6 seconds of immunity after we activate our Forge skill, which can be pretty good for actual survivability, because this just makes it so that if you're in a bad position, you can pop this, 6 seconds of invulnerability, you can run out of the bad positioning. But I also like some of the other choices that we have here. Bullet Storm being really great, because this increases our gun damage. You can have 10 seconds with 5 max stacks, and it's whenever we apply a status effect. Now, weakness is considered a status effect. So we can apply this, we can apply ice. You're going to get a bunch of these boosts to overall damage pretty quickly. You can also grab the Forged and Steel here to give yourself that 6 seconds of invulnerability. If you don't want to go with this increase here, 1.5% extra gun damage, it's dicey. Either of these are going to be good, but the invincibility can be really nice on certain builds, especially if you get yourself in a bad position or if you need a grenade right at your feet. Once we get into the next part of the skill tree, the Berserk is really great. So whenever Amon activates his Forge skill, he becomes Berserk for a duration of 15 seconds, gaining slow immunity, which is great, and bonus cryo damage with gun and melee damage. So this is actually pretty huge. We get a good boost to overall damage there. You can see bonus cryo damage is now 36% with +1 from our class mod. So yeah, again, that's going to boost up our overall damage quite a bit, especially after activating this. And we're going to have this activated pretty often. Now, once we get down here, there's a couple other good choices. So we got 2 great options. We only got 1 skill point left. You can take points out of the perk at the very end here if you don't want to have as many elemental shards ricocheting. You can take those points and put them into both. There is only red and rhyme break. So this, whenever your shield breaks, you do it, or you do an explosion of cryo damage and it restores 15% of your shields. 45-second cooldown on that. And there's only red here, so I actually prefer this one. So whenever you go into Berserk, every time you kill an enemy, you get 20% bonus to your overall damage, and then that's an extra plus 20% every single time that you take out an enemy. And then you also get a +3 to the duration of your Berserk. So if you can get a lot of enemies going with this after you activate your Forward skill, it's actually an insane amount of damage that you can deal with this. So yeah, maximum increased bonus damage to +200%. Yeah, it's actually a really good combination here. Now this build is all about ricocheting, so the bullet hail there, being able to ricochet, having our ricochets have a chance to ricochet. So when we want to look into items here, I also like any type of item with the ricochet. So Jakobs licensed accessories are going to be the most optimal item to have here. So this one's actually pretty crazy because you saw it at the start. It's a grenade launching shotgun that can ricochet on critical hits, and it does radiation or fire damage. This is probably the best gun for Amon here because you can use this. It's terribly inaccurate, but if you're at close range, you just explode and take out a bunch of enemies, as you saw there. I also like the plasma coil for shields. This is just one of the most useful items in the entire game for it just shreds through shields. We also like to have something like this. So critical hits refresh 2 ammo to the gun's magazine. It has an alt fire for faster damage, and it has a Jakobs licensed accessory, so critical hits will chain nearby enemies. Again, being very powerful. Same thing here with this weapon here. I actually sold the wrong one, but we can go with something like the ricocheting Dark Beast here, because this one will also ricochet. It deals corrosive and radiation damage. With corrosive, you want to have at least 1 corrosive, 1 fire, and 1 shock damage. So that's what I got here with the shotgun, the shock weapon, and the submachine gun here for corrosive damage. Now, one of the best items that you can get is in this enhancement here. So guns with the Jakobs license properties gain a 40% chance to ricochet on non-critical hits. This is where this all comes together. And guns with the Jakobs license parts will increase the possible ricochets by 1. So we're ricocheting cold damage, we're ricocheting our bullets, we're ricocheting our critical hits, and 40% of our non-critical hits. This also increases critical hit damage by 50%, huge boost, and gun accuracy, 50%, doesn't really matter too much. I also like the onion shield here as this breaks into segments, and then you get 2 seconds of immunity every time that it breaks. So this can help out a lot with survivability, and it'll also give you a +10 to your overall damage dealt and up to 35% damage reduction. And we also get the get throwing ability from that, increasing our ordnance damage by another 10%. It's nice to get 2 of those for the +20% splash radius so that our grenades can do a lot more damage than explosions in general. Now, as for the class mods, the dynamic shadow wave here is great. So Forge waves now deal melee damage in addition to the other types. So if you really want to, you could spec into the melee skills here. This will give you increased damage, critical hit chance, things like that. But from my experimenting, I found that it's nice to have kind of a mixture of the 2 here. And while SCOURGE is active, gain increased Cryo and radius. And this also gives a plus 45% cryo damage and a 25% elemental damage. You can see where this is getting pretty crazy. And also the skill tree points that I got from this one were pretty effective as well. Now to put this all together, I guess this all comes together. This here item, the triple standard bypass, allows you to do 3 Repkit charges. And every time you do a charge, it gives you next shot damage plus 200%. This is crazy with this gun here. You saw at the beginning where it just goes exploding in a huge area of effect. If you can get a similar weapon with like cryo on it, like this one here was a cryo rifle, you're doing tons of damage with that. So this, every item here kind of puts this all together. We also want to go with a throwing knife. This is a non-legendary one, but you can find different legendaries. Basically, this will increase the damage taken by 15% when you use this item. Damage to the impacted target are automatic critical hits for 5 seconds. So this knife auto crits, which again, it will chain everything. So you can just shoot at this target and they become just basically spreading bullets around everyone. Grenade damage increased 40%, projectile speed is reduced 50, and deals critical hit chance when hitting weak points. So you throw one of these, you shoot at them, it spreads the bullets all around because of all the different items here, and it gets absolutely crazy because critical hits. Basically, you want to look for as many of these with the Jakobs accessories as possible. Now, in my experience, I find that this pretty much just destroys absolutely everything, especially this gun here, because if you can get it to do that, so that's the ricochet, exploding in a huge area. This is great against a lot of different enemies because you can sometimes drop one of these exploding attacks on an enemy and then it's going to chain and get everything in the sky. So this works very well together, but even if you don't have that, you can go with something like this here, which is going to have your headshots critically hit and bounce around to other enemies. What's nice about that is then you're going to apply your freeze on multiple enemies at a time. And you can see there, it actually becomes pretty crazy. With this gun also restoring 2 bullets every time that you get a headshot or a critical hit, this can be really effective against some bosses that have really easy to hit areas of effect. We went down pretty quickly there. But again, yeah, you want to pop off with this attack and hope that it can do that huge extra explosion. This build does not perfectly need everything like that, but as long as you have things that are going to chain around, or even if not, you can chain and add extra cold damage onto your attacks. And then even so, we have our skill tree here, which if you're spamming your attack, you can see there, as long as you have enemies to attack with this, you're going to be able to have a pretty much infinite uptime on your skill, which is just nuts. So yeah, just keep spamming F or your action skill button. This guy is cold. He's a chilled one and he's a badass, but he's taking so much damage just from me spamming the skill. And you can see the skill bar is just continually going up. Like, I feel like Amon is not as going to be this high damage as some other characters, but in this mode, he gets that 60% damage reduction. And you can, yeah, we got a legendary there. It's nice. You can do so much damage in a huge area of effect, and that every third swipe is going to do that huge attack there. And then whenever you need to, if you go and take that skill tree button where you use your heal and it gives you an additional 36% uptime, it gets crazy with what you can do with the skill tree. I will be posting a future build guide for the other subclasses because I do think they are pretty strong. And yeah, you can see there, it just deletes enemies. Another thing I guess I should mention is specializations. The best skills that we could go for is the Now with Caffeine, so reduce action skill cooldown whenever a Repkit is activated. This one is crazy as mentioned because you can use your Repkits 3 times, getting 75% reduction in the cooldown. It's huge. A vaulthunter can now hip fire while sprinting and gun damage is increased when moving. I like this one just because you can hip fire while sprinting, super useful. Really, this will increase your gun damage and this can increase to a plus 50% damage. Huge damage boost. And then we also got the full arsenal here. Ordnance damage now benefits from increases to gun damage. So yeah, every boost that you get to your overall gun damage will now apply to your grenades, and that gets really crazy really fast. Everything about this build has some pretty good synergy to it. While he may not be the most powerful, this skill tree is pretty nice and you can have pretty good uptime on it. So like, yeah, all you have to do is just spam your action skill and it'll last pretty much forever. You also have this wall that you can set down to, or it used to be the wall till you take your master skill there, which creates that huge cold damage zone, which is just absolutely nuts to play around with. Yeah, the damage you can do from this is nuts. All you have to do is spam the F key in a boss's face, and you do so much damage. This will maybe give you arthritis with how much you're doing, but it's crazy. And then you see there, we have 45 seconds on our action skill cooldown. Boom, we can just spam ourselves with this, and then get it right back. So yeah. It's insane. This build is actually pretty strong. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying he's not that powerful. This is proof that with the right setup, you can do a lot of damage. So I'll be doing future builds. Let me know what you'd like to see for Borderlands 4 next. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button below. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch y'all in the next video.